So over the 2 week period, with all of these various artists and styles of Afro-Brazilian dance coming in and teaching us so much, some of the common elements that I realized that they kind of share is this idea of incorporating spirituality, whether they're dances of orishas or just like your own spirit and your own soul, and putting that into the movement, into the steps, into the work, into the everything that's there. Yeah, I noticed that it has something to do with like either yourself or this higher spiritual being. And then another thing is this idea of resistance. A lot of what we talked about in the first 2 weeks of having to have all this resistance against all of these powers, higher powers that are pushing this culture down, trying to silence them, trying to change it into their own benefits, and how important that resistance is across the board of all styles of dance. And then on top of that, there is this noticeable thing about this idea of unity that I felt like was one of the more beautiful things that I noticed, that it was always felt more connected to myself, as well as to my peers, like it was just a common, like, we're in this together. Like, these are dances of Afro-Brazilian culture, and we don't have an Afro-Brazilian like background, at least myself doesn't, but I still felt very included, which was really beautiful. Some elements of dance in general that I feel I see a lot in the culture, in Afro-Brazilian culture, is this idea of vulnerability and honesty, and what it means to just have to say how you feel and be really who you are, who you truly are, and how that can be really challenging. I know as dancers, we put ourselves on stage or we create work all the time that are like, it could be really hard for us to do that, and to admit that side of ourselves. And I know Brazilian culture there's a lot of things like about their past and what they go through that's very hard for them to come to terms with. And I noticed that with some of the Brazilian students during like the first 2 week portions, that a lot of things that they would say about their experiences here, their day-to-day life, I could tell it was like very hard for them to talk about, but it was really important for them to talk about, and it meant a lot to them. And that kind of brings me to my next thing, that I feel like dance and Afro-Brazilian cultures share this idea of strength, and I guess like courage as well, to see something that's difficult in front of you, acknowledge that it has been difficult, and still persevere is another thing I would say. Still push through all of those things, knowing that it could be hard, knowing that you could not, possibly not be understood, that some people might think of you as like less valuable or whatever it may be, but still standing by that vulnerability and honesty, and doing it anyway, and existing anyway, and having that voice, and doing it. And then I feel like taking these classes has taught me a lot about it's like how to just like figure out my words, how to really put your own experiences aside and your own lives, and really dive into the experiences of someone else, or at least try to, and put yourself aside, and understand all these things, and how that has come back to how I see myself now, how I see my own experiences, how I relate those two things, and how I compare them. I feel like that was really beautiful for this extended time, a month, to really like put that aside, and then come back and reflect and see how all of that means to me, and how that's changed me.